Hi, everyone. Welcome to Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast. This podcast is all about farmers markets, how to increase your market business success while providing people with fresh food. Farmers markets are essential. Whether you're a farmers market manager or a small farmer or food maker selling at farmers markets, you have found just the right podcast. This week, our guest is Beth Satterwhite, farmer at Yamhill Farm, a small first-generation farm offering responsibly grown produce and cut flowers in Yamhill Valley, Oregon. Hey everyone, I'm one of your hosts, Bridget Myers. I'm a longtime Farmers Market Manager, Vendor 101 co-teacher, and education coordinator at Farmers Market Pros.
And I'm Kat Fields-White, Director of San Diego Markets, still an active Farmers Market Manager and consultant, founder of Farmers Market Pros, and host of Intense, the Farmers Market Conference, and the Farmers Market Pros community.
And I'm Justine Marzoni-Mead, Tent Talk producer, marketing director for Farmers Market Pros, and logistics coordinator for Intense, the Farmers Market Conference, coming up soon, March 7th through 9th, 2022, baby.
It's coming.
Oh my gosh, that little counter that's on the website that keeps rolling back by the second, showing us how close our deadline is. It's kind of freaking me out.
Ready or not, here we come.
That's right, March 7th, 8th, and 9th. Today's episode of Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast, is supported by California Palms, offering durable market tents in a variety of sizes to fit any footprint, and market accessories from berry baskets to digital scales. California Palms ships market canopies and supplies throughout the U.S., and we've used their tents at our markets for years. To order tents, reusable bags, and more, click on the California Palms logo on the resource page at farmersmarketpros.com.
Well, welcome back to Tent Talk, everybody. Today we are talking with Beth Satterwhite, farmer at Yamhill Farm, which is southeast of Portland, Oregon, about market share programs and more. Welcome to Tent Talk, Beth.
Hello, thanks for having me.
We are so happy to talk to you.
Yeah, we
You're
love
actually
to get farmers
southwest
on
of
here.
Portland, right? I think that was my fault.
Yes, southwest.
Yes,
Portland.
yeah, towards McMinnville. Right?
Southwest.
Right outside McMinnville.
So pretty up there.
Don't ask me any geography questions.
And I tricked you. I'm sorry. That was a typo on my phone.
Take no fault. Well, Beth, we'll just kind of jump right in. If you want to give us a little kind of information on your background, on your personal business background, and how you ended up farming and with your partner, Erik.
Yeah, absolutely. So we kind of fell into farming a little bit. I got interested in food system issues and through that agriculture in college, but I never really intended to be a farmer. We both went to college in at Linfield College, which is in McMinnville. So that's how we both ended up here. I grew up just like a county over, and Erik grew up in Washington State. So we met at Linfield. We kind of found jobs, so we stuck around, which wasn't necessarily our plan to stay in McMinnville, but worked out good. Obviously, we're still here. Yeah, and so I had done a lot of reading and research on food system issues, local food, all that kind of stuff in college. And then my honors thesis for sociology was actually about community supported agriculture, CSA farms. And so my senior year of college, I interviewed like a dozen or 15 farmers in the greater Portland area. And I think that was probably the first time I was like, oh, people do this as a job. Like it's a thing that people do. Because
Wait, somebody grows our food?
Yeah. Which
It's
is
real.
so basic, but it's kind of true. And I like grew up in an agricultural county, and I grew up on like my mom has an amazing garden, and we canned we did all the food stuff, and there's like a ton of strawberry farms around and that sort of thing, but it just like never clicked. So yeah, I did that thesis in college, and all my college friends were like, obviously you were going to become a farmer, and I did not see it at all.
She was voted most likely to become a farmer.
That's right.
Something like that. No one told me though. So
It's a surprise.
We kind of bopped around McMinnville for a few years after graduation. I worked a bunch of retail customer service jobs for small businesses in the area. And then I started doing some work in nonprofits to try and apply my degree. And then did things around food systems again, kind of community what do communities need to work better in their food system was one sort of job that I did, working under a food bank. They got a grant to do some research about the community and its needs. And then I worked for a nonprofit more focused on the farmer side. So farmer education, farmer networking, that sort of thing. And even though I was doing all that and like using my degree, I was pretty unhappy. I didn't like working inside all the time. I was definitely looking to make a change, and I was a regular at the McMinnville Farmers Market as a customer. And one day I asked a guy who I bought veggies from every week to give me a call if he ever needed, help on the farm. And he called me the next spring. So
he's like, yes, I do. The next day. Yeah. That's kind of how farming goes, right?
It wasn't quite that quick, but it was pretty fast. So that's how I got my first farming job. I worked for him for a couple of seasons, and then I had through that job at the nonprofit working with farmers specifically had started to make some friends kind of in the local farmer community. And one of those friends reached out to me in 2014 saying she was leaving her rented land, which was just down the road from the farm I was working at, 10 minutes away. She was like, "Are you interested? I can introduce you to our landlord." And I was like, "Oh." Because I wasn't planning necessarily on starting my own farm. I was thinking about maybe working for a different farm, but the land kind of fell into our lap. And then we met with the landlord. His name's Zach Christensen. We still rent from him, and we really hit it off. And we were like, well, I don't think we say no to this, because things happen, for a reason / when it's kind of just presented to you, why say no? So we signed our lease in the fall of 2014 and immediately planted garlic, and we've been farming since. So,
did Erik think this was a good idea? Was one of you leading the charge here and the other one was like, I don't know? Or did you take turns egging each other on? Was it a dare?
How'd you a dare? We do joke that farming is my fault, because I was definitely the one that was like, well, my friend Kara just told me about this land, and I was looking for something new to do in farming. And I kind of joked that I dragged Erik into it. He didn't know really what we were getting into. Neither did I, but he knew even less. But he was really interested in it. We had made some friends who were farmers. We kind of helped out on some small organic farms, doing the fun stuff, not the day-to-day slog. So we were pretty interested in it. Yeah. And then he was an amazing support, because we started our farm out of savings, and he worked and still worked another full-time job on top of his full-time job, helping me out on the farm. So it's a team effort. We definitely have kind of figured out where our strengths and weaknesses are in terms of doing all the things a farm requires. But yeah, it's definitely a team effort.
So how do you guys kind of divide that? What are your specific roles at Even Pole Farm?
Yeah. So because Erik has a day job, which it's shifted a little bit over the years, but he's worked for the city of McMinnville for 12 years in various capacities. I have been the boots on the ground on the farm day to day. So that means doing everything. That's harvest, that's deliveries, that's planting, that's cultivation, that's managing crew, it's the propagation house. So that big chunk of work is on my plate. And then Erik helps a lot he's a cultivation master, so he does a lot of cultivation. He helps build and refine systems. So our greens washing system, he totally built out. He does all of the irrigation work, especially with systems design, and then a lot of the actual irrigating as well. He will jump in and help on anything. If I need a body to help run a pop-up market, Erik is there. He for years would shift his work schedule around so he could work farmers market with me, because we didn't have employees. And so he would take work a weird shift so that he could help cover farmers market. Yeah. And I do most of the client communication, the email list, the texting with the chefs, all that kind of stuff. And then Erik is a really big help also with the big picture planning and visioning for the farm and where we're going, and going over our finances and making sure we're solvent and all that good stuff. So
that's nice. Sounds like a nice division of kind of labor for the farm in one way or
It works
another.
out pretty good.
Yeah, it works out well. It's nice to have people who have strengths in different areas because then it's more of a balance. Like if you guys both wanted, your strength was the cultivation and the irrigation and no one wanted to do the other back end stuff, that would be a little imbalanced. So it sounds like it's working out. How many acres do you guys farm right now?
We are currently renting, I believe it's just under 4. We're basically squaring off one of Zach's fields because he's a large scale farmer. So his equipment is enormous. So it's a place where it was hard for him to turn his tractor around, but we can grow a lot of food there, it turns out.
Oh, great.
Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a really weird shape, like kind of splayed across our driveway, like an odd shaped farm. So we actually only produce on about 2 of the 4 acres total. So
Okay. And what kind of stuff are you growing? You have greens, you said, and garlic. What other items are you growing?
We grow pretty much everything you would imagine a farmer's market farm would grow. So salad mix is our top crop for all aspects of our business. So we grow a lot of salad mix, which is primarily a lettuce mix. And then an array of root vegetables. We grow some things that are a little bit more chef driven, like fennel. We grow crops for storage, so onions, potatoes, root veggies for the winter, winter squash, just a little bit. I'm trying to think. All the like summer crops, we do a fair amount of intensive greenhouse crop in the summertime. So cucumbers and tomatoes primarily. We grow a lot of really cool pepper varieties because I love peppers and I get very obsessed with new varieties of peppers. So really just about everything. And then to make it more fun, add on, 50 varieties of cut flowers.
Nice. A little beauty.
Very diverse.
Yes.
That's good, though. If something doesn't work, you've got other things going on. Diversity is oftentimes key to keeping it going.
Yeah, a little more complicated, but definitely helpful, probably.
That's great. All right, so we are a farmers market podcast. So we do want to ask you about the McMinnville Farmers Market, which did that just end for the season?
It did. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
awesome. So what is that farmers market like? How big is it? Who shops there? What's the vibe there? I don't really know anything about McMinnville, so maybe you could tell our listeners what that area is like.
Yeah. So you're totally correct. There is a lot of wine. So we're in Oregon's wine country. I would say there's probably 200 plus wineries in operation in our county. It's a huge thing, all various scales. But yeah, so like if you've heard of Sokol Blosser, they're a pretty prominent family. They've been growing grapes and making wine since the 80s, I believe. They were like one of the first families. So lots of wine. Because of wine, we have a lot of tourism, but interestingly, I don't think our market is really a tourist destination. And I think that's mostly the time that it runs. So it's on a Thursday afternoon. So our market is definitely more local customers. So yeah, it's kind of a local haunt. The market, I believe, just had its 10-year anniversary. 20-year
congrats.
Ooh,
Wow.
I don't remember.
Nice.
It's been around for a long time. It was founded by another Yamhill County farmer and started out in like a parking lot and people just drove in their trucks sort of deal. So very grassrootsy. And it's a pretty cute, pretty extensive market at this point. I feel like there's like 60 vendors or something.
Oh, that's a nice size, especially for a weekday.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And it's not the only farmers market in our county, but it's the only like larger one with a little bit more traction with customers. Like people know to come to the Thursday market. It's like on their radar. So
that's great. Yeah. So when you first started Even Pole Farm, did you imagine farmers markets in your mind? Like, I'm going to grow some veggies, I'm going to sell them at the market. Was that always part of your farmer plan?
It was, yeah. So at the farm that I worked for 2 seasons, Yamhill River Farm, we were a vendor at the McMinnville Farmers Market. So technically this is my 9th year at that market. It must be a 20-year-old market because I was not there when it was getting started. So, so I had already been a vendor there for a couple of seasons working for Aaron, my boss. So yeah, market was on my radar. I knew kind of how to do it. Market is nice in terms of farming, especially when you're starting out, that if you don't have everything every week, it's not like the biggest deal. Like if you don't have salad mix one week, you can still go to farmers market. Like you just don't have something. So yeah, farmers market was definitely on my radar. And at the point that we started the farm business, we'd already lived in this community for quite a long time, and I'd worked a lot of jobs, and we had friends and other connections. And so going to market was a good way to be visible in the community and kind of draw on that network that we had created over the years of just living here. So it was very helpful early on that we didn't have a following, like the farm didn't have a following, but people knew who we were. And so they came out to see what we were up to at market.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like when you're first starting a business, it can kind of be this like silo of like, you're just so focused on what you're doing. And if you have the farmers market, at least you have like one day a week where you're seeing other humans and like connecting to people and interacting with others beside the people that you work with.
Yeah. Right.
Exactly. Yeah, and for a lot of years, it was just me out there, so I really needed that social outlet.
I thought you were isolated in that hot sauce kitchen, Justine. Think about being on a farm.
Oh, my God. Well, even like this last year, the farmers market was like the one place that people got to see each other, too. So it still fills that role for people. So in McMinnville, it sounds like this market that you're at is kind of like the hot spot place to be, but there are also so many awesome, really big farmers markets in Oregon, somewhat close. So why have you decided to only sell at the McMinnville Farmers Market, and why not hit up some of these like larger weekend markets in your area?
Totally. Yeah. It was somewhat of a conscious choice. So we currently sell everything we grow on our farm within 25 miles of the farm. So I don't leave the county at all, not for restaurant clients, not for any market or anything like that. So it's kind of a cool thing that sort of just happened, that we're able to sell everything here is pretty cool. So we don't need to leave currently. And then I already spent a lot of time driving for the farm and a lot of time off farm. And so going further afield for our market just doesn't really make sense right now. We are in the process of looking to purchase a farm property of our own. And if we are able to find anything, which is it's a whole thing. But if we're able to find anything, our cost to run the farm just in terms of land access will greatly increase. And so our plan is, if we're able to purchase a farm, that we will probably add a weekend market, possibly Salem, because it's a little closer to us than the Portland area markets, just to help offset that cost, because we know how to do market. We know we can do it really well. We know we can, make money at a farmer's market. So the idea of adding one of those like more populated weekend markets is definitely, it's in the ether, but we don't have enough product at the moment to support one, and don't have enough time to do the driving and the working. So
and if you're selling everything, then good for you.
Yeah, if you don't have to, why work more and drive more if you don't have to? That is a really cool kind of like talking point to be, say like, hey, everything is within 25 miles. Like that's a incredibly small radius, and that's like really eating local. So.
Yeah, that's great.
So in addition to your farmer's market, you also sell produce at Local Goodness Marketplace. Can you tell us a little bit about like what that is?
Yeah, so that kind of grew out of COVID. So there is a new business in town. They started, I believe, like the fall of 2019, right before the pandemic. And it's called Mac Market. A little confusing, McMinnville Farmers Market, Mac Market, different things. Mac Market is like a shared use space. So there's a bar, a restaurant, and a cafe inside. And then they have, since COVID, I'm probably telling this in the wrong order, but since COVID, they've built out a little marketplace in there for local food product. And so prior to COVID, we had approached them about maybe doing like a little veggie cooler. We thought like maybe people would like to like grab a bag of salad mix, when they stopped in for a Saturday morning coffee. And we started that just before the pandemic, like right before things started getting shut down. And so people kind of knew it was happening. During COVID, we transitioned that effort with Mac Market into doing pre-packed boxes of vegetables, and then bringing in some other local vendors, like local wine, obviously, but local olive oil. Their kitchen there was making meal kits. Like we did all the like creative things to try and get people access to good food during a really weird time. And then when COVID kind of subsided, we turned our attention back toward like a retail situation inside of Mac Market. So now we have 5 doors of cooler space in there. And then we've worked out a really good deal where basically they take a margin, we purchased all the coolers, and they do all of the sales for us. So that's what the local goodness marketplace is. And we bought a second cooler at the end of 2020 because it was a really popular option for people. So we wanted to expand that. So we went from 2 doors to 5 doors this year.
It's kind of consignment-ish, right? So when you say they take a margin, they get a mark on the produce, but they're not buying it from you up front. Is that correct?
No, they do buy it up front.
Oh, they do buy it. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So it's them that has the waste and things to deal with.
Yeah, and we're really lucky in that there's very little waste. I manage that pretty closely. So I inventory multiple times a week and like kind of check in on how things are selling. So there is very little waste, and any waste there is, they're able to use in their restaurant kitchen. Chef Cart is one of our best clients. And so she'll just absorb like, the one thing of microgreens or whatever.
That's perfect.
So not really a problem. It works out great. It's really awesome.
Awesome. And then you also have a little CSA program, right? As well?
We have previously. So when we started the farm, we did CSA and the McMinnville Farmers Market, and then sort of dabbled in chefs. We kind of fell into doing chefs, and then over the years that became such a big part of our business that sustaining the CSA wasn't super viable. We kind of reverted last year in 2020 because it was easier to deliver people a mixed box of vegetables. But we did it. We didn't do like a traditional CSA. We didn't take people's money all up front because we knew so many people who got laid off of their jobs that it felt really bad to be like, pay me $600 and you can have vegetables this year. We just did it week by week, and people could come and go as they needed. The CSA, it was great to start, but we kind of hit a ceiling pretty quickly on how many members we could sustain. And it wasn't enough for the amount of effort and communication and time that a CSA really does take. And with our restaurant business growing too, like it made more sense to have our crop mix a little bit more driven by restaurants and market than by the CSA. So yeah, totally the CSA is kind of phased out at this point.
So is that where you started developing what I think is just fascinating? You have a farm share program. Mm-hmm. So instead of them committing for a particular box, your customers can just buy a certain amount of market credit in advance. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah. So we call that our market share. And we started that, I want to say maybe a couple years into doing our farmers market, because we had some customers who they really wanted to support the farm, but they didn't want to join a CSA. It wasn't their bag. Like they wanted to pick their vegetables and come out to the market for the experience. So yeah, it's basically a prepaid gift card. We have set dollar values you can buy, and then each level of card, you basically get a little bit of a bonus credit applied to your account. As a thank you because people buy these in like January, February, March, like a time when we're not making any money. So it is really helpful to have that little bit of an income bump. And then they can just shop at our market booth all season long, use up their credit. They can add more if they want. They get that little bit of bonus. It's a really fast, easy shopping experience. It's like the folks who have learned that we do this and have done it really, really like it. And they come back year after year. So
yeah, I think that's so smart. And then it's like any loyalty card. They're committed. I'm definitely going to look at Southwest Airlines first because, I'm building points in that one spot as opposed to going somewhere else. So that's loyalty card stuff is so smart. Mm-hmm. When you say they usually buy it at the first of the year, like in the first quarter, are they available for sale all the time? So can somebody come in November and say, hey, I want to buy $300 credit. And then I think it looks like you give them maybe 15% off if they buy that much and, 5 or 10% off depending on the smaller increments, but they can buy it any time, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Up until 2019, up until 2020, we had asked people to use their credit by the end of the season. And we kind of basically in 2020 just decided that probably wasn't realistic given pandemic uncertainty, whether people were going to be coming to market consistently, what their income level was, et cetera. So we have just started to carry over the credit. So it doesn't matter when you buy it, it'll just be in our little box with all the little cards, and we keep and manage the cards, which I would highly recommend.
I was going to ask you. Yeah. So
lost
how
cards.
do you track this? Are you using an electronic card and a platform that it swipes and it has a decreasing balance, or do you have, the old school index cards where you're hashtagging and
That would
subtracting?
totally work fine.
That would work in a small enough situation, but what are you doing?
Yeah, part of the reason we went for it is that it was a few years into doing farmers market, we invested in a POS system so that we could take cards. And so we use Square. We really love Square. They've done a really great job of building a platform that's easy to use and flexible. We used it through the pandemic for our pre-sale boxes. We use it for markets. We use it to manage the market shares. So we literally bought a box of gift cards. And so each person who purchases a market share has a gift card. We label them with their name, and then we have a little index card file in our market kit, and they're alphabetized by first name so that our staff learns people's names is the theory.
That's cool too. Yeah, that's great.
And so that just lives in our market kit. So it comes with us whenever we're doing either a farmer's market or maybe it's a pop-up or whatever, and their credit is always there. I didn't want to deal with people losing their card all the time because I knew it was going to be an issue.
So can you just swipe that on Square and it adjusts the decreasing balance?
Okay, that's we'll just bring them up like normal, and you swipe it as a payment option.
Every time we talk to anybody that uses Square, and we use it a lot for a lot of different things. I guess Square should be the sponsor on this episode.
Sponsored by Square.
Sponsored by Square. By the way, Square, send us
free
some money so we can do
Square.
that. Yeah. But we're always discovering new things that they do. So I didn't know that was a capability that they had, the decreasing card balance. That would be clever for even a market organization to do.
Yeah. It just scares me. What if you lose the whole box?
Okay, well, there's that, but still.
Well, then you also have it in Square.
But you have it, so if it's in Square, you'd have an electronic record and you could
go through. It would be a little hard to figure out like what name was associated with which card. But I guard that thing with my life.
And you'd be way ahead of, what I envisioned, because I ran a restaurant 30 years ago, is I envisioned an index card where you hashtagged and subtracted from the balance. And if you lost that
the Dewey
box,
Decimal System?
Yeah. We found it by the Dewey Decimal. That's right. Yeah. And if you lost that box, yes, you'd totally be messed up. I don't know where you'd start. So you've got an electronic record, so that makes sense.
Good.
Yeah. So which level do you see most commonly purchased? Do people usually go for the $100 credit? Do they go for the $300 credit? Do they start out at $100 and get hooked and then work their way up to the bigger card?
I think at this point, most of our market share customers are repeat customers, and most of them go for the biggest credit because they know they're going to be there every week. There really are like our best market regulars. One thing that was also interesting, when we stopped doing our CSA, I did try to kind of direct those people into the market share program, and a lot of them did take that path. So a lot of our old CSA members are now market share members and kind of transitioned. But I would say we get a fair number of people buying them as a gift, and those ones are almost always the $100 value. But folks who are like buying it because they're going to come buy their vegetables from us every week are going for the big one. So
that's great. Yeah. So somebody doing that right now, that'd be a great Christmas gift, holiday gift to push.
Too bad I don't know anybody in McMinnville.
But if other farmers hear this and pick it up, think how exciting that could be. Yeah, for sure.
Really, it's such a good idea.
Groceries are always the right size, when you're buying gifts for things. So how do you absorb those discounts? At the high level, 15%, not exactly a wholesale discount, but it's an effect on your sales. How do you deal with that?
We honestly haven't really worried about it. If they're going to pay us the money up front and they're going to be a regular customer, there's also, inevitably there are people who don't use all of their balance, or they move away, or they forget, or whatever. So it's all in the wash. And if they're going to show up every week for me in the rain and the heat and the whatever to come buy vegetables, they can get a discount.
Yeah, it's kind of like a marketing investment.
Yeah, so 5 to 15%, that's a reasonable amount, just if you call it marketing.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Smart. Any cons of this program? Anything that you've discovered, or are you doing something related to the program that if you knew then what you knew now, would you do something different?
I think the main thing that I've learned over the years is that people often will want to try and re-up their balance at market, and that's not the easiest thing to do. And so we have an online payment portal. Basically, again, it's just through Square, where we have people fill out their little we have them fill out a little membership agreement, like this. These are the hours of the market, like yada yada yada, like all the stipulations. and then they can pay online. And so I think the thing that has been the most awkward are when people want to add a random amount of money at the market. And it's easier now to just be like, oh, I'm really sorry, like I can't do that during a busy market day. You can go to our website, you can add more credit there. It'll be on your card next time you come.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so just
Square is so
that,
accessible
system.
online. Even on your phone, I would think that people can probably, it's not that big a trouble for them.
It is. And that's helpful because you do have to you have to take that dollar value that lives in the internet and translate it to the physical card. And it's a thing to do, like when you have a line at a farmer's market.
Sure.
So just telling people I'm so sorry, like if you're okay paying today, a regular way, you can go online, pay your balance. We'll have more loaded on your card next time. So I really feel like that's the only drawback. I can't think of anything else.
I just think the whole market share concept is just so smart to me, whether you do it as an individual farmer or food maker, or whether you do it as a market, give people a chance to upload a certain amount of money at the market. That would have been really helpful during COVID when we had sudden drops in market income.
Especially like in an area where the markets are seasonal, it just I'm sure just like budgeting wise, it helps you out in those months where you had those people prepay ahead when you're not at the market each week.
Because it's similar to community-supported agriculture. They're investing in the idea that, they're giving you some operating funds during the time when you're planting more than selling.
Exactly.
So it just really makes sense. So we've got a little bit of time left. So let me ask you had mentioned about looking at buying your own land. So you lease land from Christensen Farm, is that who you said? Yeah. So do you have a tip for farmers trying to lease land, and what do you see as the advantage of owning your land? I mean, there's some obvious things, but there's pros and cons. What made you decide to head in that direction?
So we have been on the property rent from Zach. He's like a 5th generation farmer, which honestly is really great. I love renting from a farmer because besides the early years when we were bad at weed control, him being like, you gotta work on that. He doesn't bother us at all. He gets veggies occasionally. When we had a CSA, he got a regular share. He comes by and says hi, but it's a very chill, we talk the same language, which is great. So highly recommend renting from another farmer if you're able to. But all that to say, we've been on that land for 7 years now, and we've made a lot of improvements, including pouring a concrete slab in the barn. So when we started spending multiple thousands of dollars on things we couldn't take with us if we ever had to leave, we were like, okay, I think maybe now is the time to start looking for something of our own. And we're at the point in our business where basically all of the improvements and moves we want to make require a lot of money, and they are not mobile.
Gotcha. How long is your lease? What's your typical lease term?
So we were year to year for a good long time.
I'm always surprised how many farmers do that. That seems so scary, but a lot of them do. It's not just you.
It was scary and not at the start because we honestly didn't know if we were going to keep doing it. We did hit a threshold where we're okay, this is actually starting to cause us anxiety. And at that point we asked Zach for a long-term lease. And so we're in year 3 of a 5-year lease right now. So it's really nice. We know, our lease, he has us on a little, our lease goes up incrementally every year with inflation and all that kind of stuff. But we know exactly what we're going to owe, for those years, and know that it is secure. He's also really great because he knows we're looking for property. Buying the property we're on is not an option. So he knows we're looking, and he will let us break a lease at any point with no penalty if we are able to buy something. So
that's good.
All around great landlord situation. So that's really nice. Given that we're looking for property in an extremely hot and competitive market.
We're hearing that from so many farmers that it's just, and for that matter, people that want to buy homes. It's just a really tough time to buy, and it's a tough time to buy farmland, and as it has been for a long time, farmers are competing with developers for big swaths of land, and oftentimes developers have more money. I don't know what it is about the nature of the beast.
How do they do that?
Yeah, how does that work? But I know it makes it really hard. So are you, any leads? Are you feeling hopeful?
Hopeful? I don't know.
And she's not going to tell us. We're going to go.
Oh, that's right.
She doesn't want anyone else to listen and go count
There's nothing out there. Don't bother looking.
Nothing's all good. There's nothing really in the works. It's we would like to stay within Yamhill County if we can. So we've given ourselves some parameters that are making our search harder. Property values here are extremely high. They're inflated by tourism. They're inflated by out-of-state people moving here for the country life. And unfortunately, because our farm is small, our operation is small acreage-wise, we're looking at properties that people want as a second home or to live their country dream or whatever. So our competition is very stiff. Property values or farmland values in the Willamette Valley are also crazy high. It's $18,000 to $20,000 an acre. And then it only goes up if you add a house or a barn or any amenities at all. And then you guys are based in California, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So you're not going to scare us with those prices.
Yeah. You're that's nice. So you know about water rights, which are a thing in the West, which I've watched a lot of people move to the Midwest and just buy whatever and do whatever they want. And I'm oh, it looks so nice. But we are also limited in that we grow product for sale. So we have to have a state issued water right. They come with the property. They're not issuing them really anymore. And so we kind of just have to wait until something comes along. We've made a few offers on places and been beaten out by cash every time. Which really sucks. We don't have that. We don't have $800,000 to $1 million in cash. It's not a thing. So yeah, it's rough out here.
Yeah, really frustrating. Have you given thought to moving to another part of the country? I know we've seen a few of our California farmers do that, head back to Tennessee or Kentucky.
Yeah,
or what have you.
It is tempting, but the reality is all of our family is here in Oregon and Washington. And we're already kind of far. My folks are very close, but most of Eric's family lives in pretty far north Washington, and we don't really want to move further than that. We also have built our business on community connections, and I don't think it's not I'm old by any means, but I don't want to restart my business from zero.
Yeah, you got a good amount of time in it, so you have chef relationships and customer relationships.
Yeah,
that's
it's
huge.
Just too much to walk away from at this point. I think we would probably rather lease forever rather than move to another state. But it's really hard. And I totally respect people who up and move somewhere else because I get it. It's almost impossible. And the Pacific Northwest in California is just almost impossible. So,
yeah. And once you learn how to farm in a certain climate, a certain area, it would super be starting all over with all the things that you've learned about the soil and the weather and all those things.
True.
So,
yeah, absolutely. Tough. It's a big challenge. We have seen some good things happening in terms of leasing. We've got some older farmers that are done, and it's tempting for them, I'm sure, to just take developers' money and walk away. But a lot of them are really conscious about, hey, there's a new farmer. They're not going to take over my 80 acres, but maybe I can do leases on different pieces of it. And so give those new farmers a chance to ease in. So we have seen a lot of older farmers being conscious and aware of that. And then people like, American Farmland Trust or Marin Trust, that kind of thing, Marin Agricultural Trust, that buy big pieces and then split them up into smaller farms. So there are some good things happening too.
Yeah, I feel like California is ahead of us on that one. There's not a lot of land trust action in Oregon at the moment. The interesting thing, because we've been talking to older farmers, but all their properties are huge and we cannot afford them. And with water rights, if you divide a property, it only goes to one of them. And so it's a pickle. We would love to take over an operation for an older farming family or couple or whatever who is trying to find their way out. But the reality is most of their farms cost $2 million or more, and we just cannot afford it. So there's got to be
there's a lot of questions.
The land trust way is the way, but we just don't really have that here yet.
Right, or some kind of cooperative or something. I mean, there's a lot of creative approaches coming along, but I think it's certainly not cut and dried, and it's not necessarily obvious yet.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
Good job hanging in there in the meantime, and I'm glad you have a farmer as a landlord, because that's a little bit
it sounds like
ahead of the game. Yeah, definitely a good thing. Well, thank you so much for talking to us today.
Yeah,
for sure. Thanks
this has been wonderful. Anything else you want to talk about that we skipped?
I don't think so. Farmers markets are, a really great avenue. I'm sure all your people listening already know that, but it really is wonderful, especially for a small, diverse farm. So it's a good place.
We love our farmers. We love our markets. Thanks for being with us,
Thanks
Beth.
so much,
Thanks,
Beth.
Great to meet you.
Say hi to Erik.
I will say hi to Erik. He says hello too.
Thank him for working that day job to keep y'all farming.
Oh, man.
Exactly.
Thanks for listening to Tent Talk today, and big thanks to California Palms for supplying high-quality canopies to keep all of us out of the weather and building our market brands this time of year. Find more information and order your tents and market supplies by clicking the California Palms logo on the resource page at farmersmarketpros.com.
Farmers markets are all about connection, and all of us, operators, farmers, and vendors, keep learning. Join us and your fellow market participants at the 6th Annual Intense the Farmers Market Conference in San Diego, California on March 7th, 8th, and 9th, 2022 to grow your market and your community. Connect with people just like you from various parts of the country and share what's happening in your area in the terrific conversations over in our private Facebook group, the Farmers Market Pros Community. If you're actively involved in a farmers market, please find us there, answer the 3 qualifying questions, and join the group. You can also message us on Instagram at Farmers Market Pros or email us at connect@farmersmarketpros.com. If you're just getting started in farmers markets, check out our Vendor 101 online course at farmersmarketpros.com. Thanks for listening to Tent Talk. Please leave us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you access your podcast, and tell us and others how you're enjoying Tent Talk. If you are listening on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, and be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss the next episode. Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast, is proudly produced by Farmers Market Pros, where passion meets profit. Today's episode was recorded and edited by Justine Marzoni Mead. Original music by David Mead. Thank you so much for listening today, and we'll have another great episode next week. Tune in.